Speaker.
Paul Foster-Bill.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Sir, I welcome the Labour opposition's support for this legislation, but I needs must take exception to some of the comments that have been made so far, both in the measured and reasonable contribution from Mr Nash, but also in the slightly more vituperative one from Dr Megan Woods earlier in this debate. Sir, this bill, the Exclusive Economic Zone and Continental Shelf Environmental Effects Transitional Provisions Amendment Bill, is very important for New Zealand. The Minister who has introduced it, the Honourable Dr Nick Smith, the Minister for the Environment, has an outstanding track record in this government and in this country in terms of his focus on protecting our pristine natural environment in New Zealand over his more than 2 decades service in this Parliament. And I applaud him for introducing this piece of legislation, which in my view very carefully and appropriately balances the need to allow existing commercial operators to continue their important activity, which not only supplies energy to meet this country's energy needs and employs many New Zealanders, makes us a wealthier country, but also actually contributes to our international exports, as previous members have commented on. Sir, this bill has been introduced because of a bedding in provision, or at least an issue that's arisen in terms of the bedding in of a piece of legislation which for New Zealand was fairly groundbreaking. So we've heard from the other side of the House accusations thrown around regarding sloppy process. Well, this bill amends legislation which was a New Zealand first, providing any form of protection whatsoever for our exclusive economic zone, a zone which is the 4th or 5th, depending on the way you measure it, in terms of size in the world, and is the patrimony of every New Zealander, Māori, Pakeha, Asian, wherever you're from. We all have a stake in protecting the pristine natural environment, from the hectares and Maui dolphins to the fisheries to the mineral resources that we can extract safely and use for the betterment of our economy and for employment of our people. It is in New Zealand's interest to make sure that that environment is protected. Now, the Maui field, which this bill primarily deals with, provides about 20% of the natural gas needs of New Zealand. That is very significant in terms of heating, cooking and other energy, industrial energy as well, and we cannot afford to have any uncertainty whatsoever over its operation, and that's why we are committed to remedying this bedding in issue which has been discovered in the legislation. And when the opposition talk about sloppy process, sir, well, there's a word I'm not allowed to use in this House, but I can say it is a little bit cheeky to do so, when in fact the track record of that government, when they were in for 9 years, was doing nothing whatsoever to protect our EEZ, no environmental regulations, and when it came to other environmental law like climate change, introducing 1,000 amendments to a piece of legislation without notice and demanding a vote be taken on it on the same day. So I don't think on this side of the House, sir, we should take any lectures from those members of that party on the other side. Sir, this Act deals primarily with a company, Shell Todd Oil Services. It's a very good company, half owned by Shell. It's a joint venture, half by Todd New Zealand, an excellent New Zealand company which has a very good track record. In fact, I can refer to the exact project which has caused the need for this piece of legislation, which is something called a sidetrack well. It's effectively a side spur. In fact, there are 2 of them, 2 side spurs drilled off existing wells. They continue for some distance, up to 6.5 kilometres, I was surprised to learn. It's quite an engineering feat to think that underwater and under the seabed one can drill that far, 6.5 kilometres. But this is a kind of drilling or gas extraction that has gone on for many years. In fact, Todd report that it's 35 years old in the particular Maui gas field that they're dealing with, and in that 35-year history they have had an exceptional track record of health and safety for their staff members, but also environmental compliance. So whilst it is unfortunate we are now in the situation where, in passing groundbreaking legislation which for the first time protects the EEZ, we have left a very good, responsible, high-functioning and serious New Zealand player in the oil and gas exploration field in a position where they may find themselves in June this year not to be in compliance with that new and innovative legislation. I think it does behove any government to make sure that that glitch, which we have acknowledged, is remedied, and so that their operations can continue on unfettered, as long as they remain in compliance with our environmental standards. But, sir, there are 3 other companies which would be affected if we were not to bring in legislation at this point. The problem may be a little bit further down the track than it is for Shell Todd New Zealand. We have Australian Worldwide Exploration Limited, which has existing permits under the previous Crown Minerals regime, which runs through until the 24th of November 2025. We have OMV New Zealand Limited, which run through until the 1st of December 2027, and we have Origin Energy Resources Limited, which have permits that would see their operations continue through until the 26th of June 2031. So whilst this is primarily to deal with the more imminent issue around Shell Todd Oil Services, there are 3 other companies for whom there would be implications if this remedial action was not taken. And in fact, we should also bear in mind that these matters with regards to Shell Todd are before the Environmental Protection Authority, an independent body which will consider the environmental implications and, in my view, hopefully they'll also look at the economic implications of not allowing the permit, so that we don't see a repeat of previous decisions which, whilst I respect, I can't say I agree with regards to the extraction of iron sands in Taranaki and the extraction of phosphate off the Chatham Islands. So, sir, this is actually a relatively simple piece of legislation. It is nothing like the 1,000 amendments dropped at the last minute by the previous government to their major environmental legislation. In fact, despite the Honourable Member Stuart Nash referring to it as a 6-page bill, it's actually only 1.5 pages if you exclude the explanatory note. It's a very simple piece of legislation, effectively amending section 162 of the Exclusive Economic Zone and Continental Shelf Environmental Effects Transitional Provisions Amendment Bill. And it will allow Shell Todd to continue with operations which they have been undertaking for 35 years in a safe and effective manner. Sir, we take the environment seriously, and I'm very proud to be a blue-green, that is a member of the National Party who sees the need and the ability to reconcile environmental concerns with our willingness to move this country forward economically, to make sure New Zealanders have secure and well-paying employment, and this bill fits into that wider framework. This bill won't change anything for other existing operators in the field. It is specific enough that it will only deal with those areas where there is a problem, and it allows for those who have applied for their marine consents to continue until an application has been decided and subsequent objections and appeals are determined. And it is important, sir, I think we would all agree, to allow the New Zealand public through the submissions process to be able to have their say on what is a very important issue that is dear to the heart of many of us. But if the amendments aren't made before the 27th of June 2015, there will be a company in breach, there will be significant economic impact. Operations may have to cease at Maui, and the flow-on effects for New Zealand gas consumers will be significant. Other members have talked about how vital the oil industry is as a part of our economy. So I've spent some time in other oil-dependent, or at least petrochemical or extractive-dependent economies such as Iran and Saudi, and I can assure members in this House that the approach taken by New Zealand with regards to keeping our environment clean, to making it safe, to not just in terms of human safety of the workers, but safe for marine life and those other issues. In that regard, New Zealand performs incredibly well with comparison to other countries that have growing petrochemical sectors. Sir, I, without hesitation, commend this bill to the House.
Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Kia ora, I rise to oppose